extreme focus on customer service. None of it talked to each other. To have a unified system that tied all these silos of information together. If I pay you, will you sell me a system? You're never going to have it all figured out. 1,000 iterations to success.
Hey everyone, Dave Menz, Laundromat Millionaire here in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're in the Laundromat Millionaire studio, which is in our bedroom of our house. So don't worry, it's not really as fancy or as important as it sounds. But I'm here today with an industry rock star that is unlike very few that you will ever meet in the industry. And I'm here with my beautiful bride, Carla. And we're going to be talking shop today about small businesses and entrepreneurship and things like that, and trying to bring you all value to the industry. Carla, why don't you tell them about our guests?
So today we have with us Brian Henderson. He is the founder and co-owner of Wash-Dry-Fold POS. If you're not familiar with that, that is the point of sale system specifically designed for the laundromat industry. He comes from a background in the laundromat industry, and though he is only 35 years old at this time, he already has a whopping 16 years of experience in the industry. After graduating from college with a degree in chemistry, Brian found his true calling and career in the laundry industry when he helped his father open their second store in the family's chain of laundromats called Liberty Laundry in Tulsa, Oklahoma. After scaling it to one of the most top-performing laundromats in the country, he then helped design and build their third and final store that serves as a showcase for laundromats for miles around. He is a self-proclaimed laundry nerd, as my husband is also. And Brian developed systems that help keep up with Liberty Laundry's quick growth. In 2016, Brian founded Wash-Dry-Fold POS, and to date, he and his co-founder, Ian, launched a cloud-based version of their software in November 2020 to resounding success, and they continue to add to the list of services they offer, such as credit card processing, laundromat website design, and cellular internet service for laundromats with spotty internet connections. So Brian, welcome to the show. It is so nice to finally meet you and to get to talk to you today. How are you doing?
Likewise, doing fantastic. It's nice to finally get to meet you too. I feel like I already know you, having seen the first and second episodes where you guys were interviewed. So it's great to meet you. And Dave, eventually one of these days, I'm going to actually meet you in person, although we've just barely missed each other at past CLA events. Yes. So yeah.
Well,
actually... Haven't actually met in person.
People like you and I, we get to events like that and we're in our element because we're all so big on networking. And it just, sometimes if you're not intentional about these things, you go 4 days and never actually speak in face to face. So we're definitely going to have to make sure that happens at the next event for sure.
Yeah, we'll put you on the list. He usually has a list.
Oh my goodness.
While I'm there, I want to make sure I talk to blah, 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 blah.
Awesome.
And I didn't used to have to do that, but I find that I do anymore. I guess that's a great problem to have a expanding network for sure. But anyway, listen, my friend.
Oh, I was going to say, it makes me think of Paul Pettifer, and he has a get on the rib list thing.
Right.
Adventurous, and now I got to get on the Dave list here. So.
Yeah. Well, I got to get on the Brian list too. We'll
go
in both directions. Maybe one of us will make it happen. But anyway, listen, my friend, I am so excited to have you here as a guest with us today. I'm sure a lot of the people that are watching this that are in our industry are very familiar with Brian. They're very familiar with your story. Probably very good friends, I'm sure, in many cases. But we do have an audience outside of the laundromat industry, just what we call the small business community. So I'm gonna let all our audience know right now that while Brian may be a laundromat nerd, he is a business and entrepreneurial superstar. So even if you're not in the laundromat industry and you're not even interested in the laundromat industry, trust me, get your notepad ready because he's going to be bringing some nuggets today that will be able to help you in your business. Brian, I'm sure you know this, but a part of the reason that we do this podcast is because we believe that 90% of all small businesses, a lot of the traits and character traits and secrets to success that aren't so secret are transferable from industry to industry. And so that's a big part of why we do this is we bring guests that are not in the laundromat industry on the show. And then we, of course, have guests that are in the laundromat industry that we believe bring a lot of value to our audience, some of which is outside of the industry. So anyway, thanks for being here today. We are super excited to tell your story, share your wisdom, and get to know you a little bit better. So thanks for being willing to do this.
Well, thank you for that intro. And I think that's a good kind of segue on into this discussion, and that those transferable skills, the things that help my family's chain of laundromats grow and thrive and all that. I took a lot of those lessons I learned and applied it to my current venture, which is the Wash-Dry-Fold POS. And a lot of those same lessons and those, best practices just really does carry over. So I've experienced that for myself.
Yeah. So we're excited to talk about that. Listen, before we jump into that too much, which I'm already ready to go. Like, let's get into it. But I got to push pause for a second, because we're also big believers in giving a little bit of a quick backstory, kind of your childhood, how you grew up. Obviously, eventually went to college, got a degree in chemistry, which is kind of awesome in itself. And I'm
kind
curious.
Of odd for the laundromat industry. Like, I was expecting, family laundromat industry. You were going to get into the business. You would go into like business or.
Oh yeah. I had no intention of going into the laundry business at all. That was Dad's thing. I had gone off to college, and my freshman year, after several years of research, my dad finally built his first laundromat in 2005 in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which is just outside of Tulsa. And Broken Arrow is my hometown. And, he had, starting in 2013, I think it was, he had started researching in depth. And it was an ongoing joke at every family dinner that Dad would bring up laundromats in the discussion. And at some point along the line, he had the bug. He had gone through an experience of, he was an overnight news reporter for the local radio station for all of my childhood.
Really?
And, that just leads naturally to laundromat ownership.
Sure.
It's just the path forward.
As many things do.
No, the radio station he worked for, they were acquired by a bigger communications company, and then they downsized the news department. And so pretty much all the news staff were let go. And so he went to go work at a Singular Wireless call center as a manager for a few years. And it was such a dysfunctional environment, so awful and managed so poorly, that drove him into entrepreneurship, to go into business for himself and never to go back to being an employee for anybody else ever again.
So he hadn't dreamed of having his own business until he got into a job where it totally sucked?
Well, yes and no. He had done some entrepreneurial stuff in the past. When I was a real little kid, he had his own video production company for a few years, Best Shot Video in Ada, Oklahoma. So, shot local commercials and weddings and, those sorts of things. But when he got the laundromat bug, realized there hadn't been a new laundromat built in Broken Arrow for like 20 years or so, and found a spot that would work, built it from the ground up, and just really focused on making it the most successful it could be from the very start, because he literally had his retirement depending on it. I mean, he cashed in his IRA, to do that, his retirement savings. Yeah, it was kind of a do or die sort of thing. And that's why our stores have always been fully attended from the very start, because it was Dad there trying to make it work. I mean, he literally had a cot in the office in the early days. He was working from open and close before he hired anybody. And just that attitude of treat every customer as though they matter, as though they're a person, as though they're valued and wanted, and then approaching the business in a mindful way, in a careful way, making sure that we're operationally profitable from the day one. That's kind of been the legacy we've come from, and that perspective of extreme focus on customer service, on treating every customer as though they're wanted, and having a friendly face there to greet them when they arrive. It's benefited us in a great way. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but that's huge. It's important. And in the meantime, I was off at college. I started in 2004 as my freshman year. And so I'd come home on the weekends from college and work at the laundromat, earn some gas money, see my girlfriend, now my wife, on the weekends. And then I'd go back to school during the week. And so I was involved from the laundromat from the beginning, but it wasn't until I graduated in 2010. Took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree. So, yay. You get to the senior level classes, and if you miss it on the right semester, then you got to wait the whole year before they offer the advanced level stuff. Yeah. I enjoyed Calculus 3 so much, I took it twice, that kind of thing. Failed the first time. Anyway, so But by the time I graduated, I realized that I didn't really want to pursue anything else in chemistry. It wasn't my passion. It was a thing. It was a path I had started down thinking, maybe this will be the way forward. Realized that I would have to have a lot more schooling before I could really make a go of it, of a career using anything related to chemistry. I'd have to get a master's or PhD or something like that. And I was sick of school. I was so sick. And about that time, I'd been married for a year by that point. My wife and I were ready to move back to our hometown, and Dad was working on opening up store number 2. And so he offered for me to maybe help out with managing that location or help to, finish out the build out. And within just a couple short years, that store quickly became one of the top performing laundromats in the entire country. The Coin Laundry Association puts out an industry survey every year, so you can kind of compare how your stores measure up to national averages and things like that. And we were in the top 5% for that 2,400 square foot store. It's just like, we're on to something here. And so we then began designing and building our third location. And funny story, I actually 3D modeled our third location because we owned the property, and we had to decide the equipment mix and design the building at the same time. It's like, do you choose the equipment to match the building, or do you design the building to match the equipment you want to put into it? And then you got to get bids on, the building and the equipment. And it was just too much to figure out. And Dad was using like graph paper and Lego blocks, true story. And it's like,
actually, it's a highly sophisticated interlocking brick system.
But we bought it at the toy store.
We did, but the way I'm using it makes it an adult thing.
The box for this one said ages 8 to 14.
That's a suggestion.
I think I can model it, Dad, since we know the dimensions of everything we need, and that way we can just quickly iterate on designs. And so I literally made a 3D model of the building we wanted, and the equipment mix, and even the furniture and all that. And we started shopping around to different builders because we did a steel building. So those kind of design and build operations, they kind of are all in-house. You don't have to hire an architect for that. And we took them these 3D models with like measurements down to fractions of an inch. And a couple of the guys we visited, they actually made me a job offer because they liked my 3D modeling for the construction.
So were you tempted?
And no, but I was feeling pretty smug in front of my dad getting job offers. Like, yep.
Well, hopefully at least leverage it for a raise, right?
There you go. That's right. So,
well, and to interject here, so looking at you on Facebook, I saw this, and David told me about you, you taught yourself CAD basically to create these 3D models.
Yeah.
And for those of our viewers that are interested, you have a YouTube video that actually shows the 3D model you created and how it compares to the store in person, which is a beautiful store, by the way.
Thank you.
So anyone that wants to look into that, I watched it. It was very cool.
Yeah, it's a series of 6 videos, I think, and it's designed as a tutorial to take it from a complete beginner to knowing how to at least do the basics. So you can at least take a floor plan that's given to you by your, equipment distributor or something like that, and make a 3D model of it and see if you still like the layout of it. Because it's one thing to see it on paper. It's another to be able to actually walk through the building and see the sight lines and see, okay, from the window in the office, am I able to see that back corner of the store? That was a really cool part of it. The weird part was when we finally did have the building made, and the first time I was walking in there and we actually had the equipment in and all that, it felt weird because it's like, I've been living here for the last few months, on my computer in my head, and now I'm actually walking through it. And it's this surreal feeling of deja vu. I mean, obviously I designed it, but because I had walked through it virtually so many times to see it actually in place, and it's all the exact, spacing between stuff the way I designed it. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic. So where can they find that video? Is it under your personal name, like on YouTube or?
Yeah, no, I think it's underneath the Liberty Laundry YouTube channel. And if you just search for 3D modeling for laundromats, I think you'll find it.
That's what I did.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, guys, go check that out. I have seen that, and it is pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing, especially the fact that you're self-taught. I can see why these builders were impressed. They were like, well, if you did that on your own.
Well, it's a repeated trend for myself. I'm a hobbyist. My older brother has always teased me saying I'd make a really good retired person because if I wasn't working, I would be pursuing something else and just working on it. When I was in college, I taught myself electronics. I would do stuff like make a portable video game system out of a Super Nintendo. So actually take it apart, wire up a screen and batteries and controls, make it to like a giant Game Boy. They actually put the cartridge in the back and play it off the batteries.
Awesome.
This whole hobby that, got into. And so likewise for Liberty Laundry, when the first store opened, I offered to my dad to build a website for him. And so I taught myself website design, and I got to call it work, even though it's something I would have studied anyway, but it benefited the business and I, profited from it. Likewise for the 3D modeling thing, it was calling it work, but it was also stuff I wanted to learn about.
Yeah.
And then you can see the progression there that leads on naturally to developing software to run businesses. So we had a need as our stores grew, and we grew from a team of, 6 people at the first store, 3 of whom their last name was Henderson, up to a team of like 25 people across 3 locations.
So before we get into the Wash-Dry-Fold POS side of things, tell me about the evolution that was working for your dad. You're coming into a business that already existed, that, you had been around because it's a family business, but you were off at school. You would come back and work some in it, I'm guessing in the summers or Christmas, things like that. What was that business like? Maybe not from the beginning, but what was the business like from a foundational, maybe simplistic business model, small business laundromat perspective? And then how did you guys, what tools did you bring into the business aside from the Wash-Dry-Fold POS? Because we'll definitely dive into that. But
that came years later. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was that evolution like? And I know you were, and I don't want to I'm not sure your title. Weren't you like operations manager?
Yeah,
something
self-appointed
like that?
title. Yeah,
okay,
that's right.
Gotcha. Okay, so you promoted yourself. That's what we entrepreneurs do. So walk me through those first few years, really after college, when you got involved in the business and the projects you were working on and the pain points that you found and things like that. Because I'm fascinated. I don't know this story. I mean, I know your success, but I don't actually know the details of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking me about that. It was really a continuation of efforts that my dad had already begun on. His name is John Henderson, and he had done having a degree in mass communications and being in radio and just the way he thinks. He had already had an excellent track record of documenting stuff to after the first store was up and running, and he had the operations going the way he wanted to, and he knew how to do a successful drop-off laundry service and all of that. He wrote it all down. He wrote out scripts and the mentality of how we do things, and so had kind of the genesis, the beginnings of an employee handbook, the steps to successfully process an order and all that. And so when I came on board to take on the role of manager for the second store, and that kind of morphed into an operations manager position, it was just really a continuation of that, of really an extreme focus on documenting things. Every time we ran into a problem more than once, that was a sign that there was some friction there, which means it was a sign of a lack of a system. And so is that just continuing to focus on, okay, how can we systematize this? And so that we can write it down so we can then train it, so we no longer have to feel like we're recreating the wheel every single time.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a good learning point for any entrepreneur, is the importance of documentation. I think, and that's not natural. I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, I know my husband is so passionate, you're just running 10,000 miles a minute, and you don't want to take that time to pause and get it down and get the steps down and know for future reference what you did, what worked, what didn't work, and just have that documentation. So I love that.
It's a commitment. It is a time sink, and it can feel like a distraction. It can also, it's super easy to use the excuse of, well, I'm very busy. And the answer is yes, you absolutely are. And you will always be busy. You will never not be busy. If you're in the least bit entrepreneurial, you will always find a way to make yourself busy. Oh, yeah. And so if you want to ever be busy on other projects that are interesting to you, you need to sit down and document the stuff that you want to delegate to other people, or else you'll forever be involved in managing it. And so we also had a bit of a secret weapon when we expanded to our third store, and that my mother used to work in hospital administration. She was a director of inpatient physical therapy for a major chain of hospitals here in the Tulsa area. And so she took a lot of her experience with hospital documentation and procedures and all of that and the administrative type of things, and were able to help us apply that to Liberty Laundry stuff. So we took that work that my father had already made, the things that I had written and developed, and then she helped really systematize it. So we have like a standard operations procedure, an employee handbook, policies and procedures. And on top of that, there was the work that I did of helping to manage that communications across 3 stores, and using cheap or free tools, things like Dropbox or Google Documents and things like that too, to help allow everybody to have access to it who needs access to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we use those a lot.
Yeah. So, and there's, obviously I sell a thing now, but there's lots of tools that you can piece together to manage it all. Where else was I going with this? Oh, the realization that you don't always have to write everything down. Sometimes it's easier just to pull out your smartphone and record a video on it. And if you need to have it written down, maybe you have somebody else in your team actually watch the video and then write things down. But if you're the type of entrepreneur who's just, go, or dyslexic or, anything like that, just make a video. And then there you go. It's recorded and you go like that. And so I did a similar thing for some of our wash-dry-fold procedures, like how I've shared it on the forum sometimes, where it's like our training videos for how to fold stuff so they can visually see it. So that's another useful tool there.
Were you guys in your business, were you always doing a wash-dry-fold service? I know you were always attended.
Yeah,
so
from day one.
Wash-Dry-Fold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we've always had fully attended anytime we were open, and then always had drop off from the very beginning.
Okay. When you walked into the business full time after college, was there, I assume that you found opportunities to improve processes. I know your dad already had a pretty good thing going, so you were going, taking it to a different level. As a team.
I'm the first person I know of in the laundromat industry to insist the whole team use the flip fold boards. I've seen people use the folding boards in the past, but I was at the mall and there was an as seen on TV store, and they had this blue thing called flip fold, and it's like,
we have flip folds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so that was back in, gosh, that might have been, I don't know, it was over a decade ago. So, just insisting on the team doing that. The policies and procedures, anytime that there was a customer complaint about something's not right with the order or something was missing, it seemed like, and at the very beginning when I came on board full time, that it was up to Dad or me to solve the problem every time. And it happened enough times that I realized that, okay, obviously we don't have a system around this, a system about what to do when something goes wrong with the drop-off laundry order. And we, without a system, you're not able to teach the attendants how to handle it like the owner would. And so that was probably one of my biggest contributions, was designing and training the team on that, disaster recovery, or whatever you want to call it, problem resolution, conflict resolution. One of the big ones being, if the order of operations is, if at all possible, redo the order. And if that's not available, then offer them store credit. And if that's not available, then, give them a cash or credit card refund if that's more appropriate. And if none of those apply, then actually offering the retail value of the item that was lost or damaged. So kind of drilling into their heads about, that's kind of the order of operations, if at all possible. And then beyond that, if the problem is solved for less than $50 for drop-off laundry order, then just take care of it. Just do it. Just solve it. Yeah. If it's, at their discretion. Obviously,
what's the mindset behind that? What's the mindset behind the 50? I know it's a random, arbitrary number, but what's the mindset behind that from a business perspective?
Yeah. The idea is, when the customer's in the store and they're bringing a complaint to the attendant who's there. They're wearing the uniform. We wear these blue vests in our stores with the name tag and all that. When they're talking to the attendant, that attendant represents the company. They are Liberty Laundry. The customer doesn't give a hoot who the Hendersons are or who the management is or anything like that. They're talking to an attendant that represents that store. They've brought what they feel is a very legitimate complaint to this attendant. They've spelled it all out. Here's all the details. And if the attendant then responds with, I don't know, then you've just dropped the ball. And all that work you've done on your branding, on your customer service and everything, if the attendant does not then have the authority to assist the customer or have that mentality of, I don't know, but I'll find out for you, then you've just dropped the ball. And we need that trust. Drop-off laundry service and your self-service too is very much dependent on that trust of your customers that you're going to do right by them. Even if something goes wrong, you need to really just drill it into them that you're going to take care of it. And so the $50 amount, there actually is some reasoning behind it, but the advantage of when the attendant has the authority to take care of it, they know that they've got the trust of their management, that they're going to handle it right, assuming the attendant then documents everything afterwards, then there's a lot more satisfaction in the job for the attendants too, because they know
feel empowered.
They feel empowered. They are empowered. They're entrusted. And there's a whole different atmosphere and attitude of the team when you've got that environment of trust and authority too.
You know, I talk a lot about culture in our businesses here in Cincinnati. And even when I'm doing coaching and things like that with people over the country, I talk about empowering our employees. I talk about scalable processes and procedures so we can continue to grow. And we talk about empowering our employees versus micromanaging them. It sounds like you're hitting on all the same things in all the same ways and for all the same reasons, which is why your family is successful.
It's important not to fall into the trap of delegation by abdication, meaning just throwing it at somebody. Don't get us wrong. In the first 90 days of somebody working with us, we absolutely do micromanage them like crazy. In the very first 90 days, they need to learn everything. They haven't been with us long enough to prove to us that they have good judgment. And so they're going to follow it exactly, or we're going to be double checking everything. When they're with us long enough, then they've got more authority and more trust and all that too. And that's a repeated trend in our systems. Our attendance policy, it's a point-based system. In the first 90 days, you get more than 2 points, you're just out the door. Whereas if you're with us for longer than that, then it's a rolling 90-day thing. If you don't have any infractions, then any points get wiped away. And it takes into account that sometimes you're just going to miss the shift because of whatever reason, and it just accounts for that. But you have to earn that, and you got to be with us long enough to have that trust there. What else was I going to say? Related to the refund thing, the $50.
I know you said there was a reason for the $50.
Yeah, an average drop-off laundry order in store is, at least in the past, I probably need to double check what it is these days, but it's around $30 on average, give or take. It depends on what's being washed and all that. And so $50 is more than what a normal order would be. It is a little bit psychological of kind of like, wow, that's really generous. If it's over 50, then the attendant needs to at least get a manager involved. And the managers, each of our stores now have a manager at each location. That happened when we opened up store number 3. The managers have authority up to like $200. And then beyond that, Henderson needs to get involved to just weigh in on an opinion, be made aware of it before you authorize it. But, and the truth is, in my experience, almost every single issue that comes up with the drop-off order usually is solved for less than 50. And so all those bits of data kind of went into that. If a customer says you lost a $3 pair of socks, then you lost a $3 pair of socks. And so we're going to replace it or give you store credit. We don't need to contact management about that. We don't need to make the customer wait 24 hours. Just do it. Just do it. And the concern there is with that large S, with that freedom of authority to the attendants to just give the money away and all that. You think that every single refund would be $50, which, if you haven't attended doing that, then you need to train them. Like, no, it's not like, you don't need to give them $50 every time. It's up to 50 before you contact management. And then the other concern is that, the attendant might say, well, best I can do is $50. Sorry, pal. No, that's another training thing you need to walk them through. It's like, no, it's just a deciding line of when you need to get management involved. But even with a generous refund policy, like in the last 5 years on average, it's been less than 0.1% of our Wash-Dry-Fold income has gone to refunds, which I'd say that's pretty acceptable, right? I mean, it's
amazing. Yeah.
It's tiny. It's tiny amount.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm misquoting that. Maybe it's less than 1% for sure, though. So it's tiny. It's tiny.
I think that says something about obviously how you're handling refunds, but I think it also says something about you playing offense versus defense. Meaning you're building repeatable processes, you're interviewing and training people, you're empowering them when they earn that trust, but not empowering them from day one because you don't know them. The flip folds, the repeatable processes, the ongoing training, the having a store manager in each store that maybe is or is not a Henderson, but is in charge and is empowered and is trusted. I've always felt like playing offense when it comes to those type of things is the best defense in a lot of cases, because the better we are as an organization, and this can go to culture, it can go to our hiring practices, it can go to our disciplinary practices, all of those things, that can all fend off the need. Because if you just overachieve, if you wow your customer when it comes to producing the product, then you're not going to have many refunds because they're going to be so blown away by your team and your organization and your ability to repeat these processes that you're just not going to have to deal with many refunds.
There's more trust. Yeah, there's more trust on behalf of the customer. They know that, oh, well, it's not normally like this. And so they extend you the benefit of the doubt more often. At least that's our hope. So
yeah, absolutely.
What are you going to say, Carla? Sorry for interrupting.
Just by developing a positive culture, you probably don't have the employee turnover that a lot of laundromats experience, by empowering your employees and giving them that positive work environment. And so then
Sometimes
you get people that are kind of veterans and know what they're doing too.
We have this weird mix, and it's similar to most laundromats where we have some team members who've been with us for years, and then we have a few other positions that have pretty regular turnover, especially going into the summer months. We tend to have a brutal amount of turnover. So that's something we still work around. And I think that's a sign, the fact that it is still a struggle sometimes on keeping fully staffed is that maybe we need some more systems, and we're probably to the point now where we need somebody whose sole responsibility is making sure that we're fully staffed and keeping that full.
So listen, it sounds like you have built an amazing business. Your dad first, and then you and your is it your brother, by the way? Is it your brother that's a part of the business?
Yeah, my younger brother, Sean, okay. He's the current operations manager of
Liberty
Laundry.
Gotcha.
So
he's obviously involved in this, and you all are working as a team, as a family. You've built these 2 stores, and I know there's going to be a third. You've built these 2 stores. You've improved the operations passionately. You've got outstanding customer service, an outstanding customer experience from a self-serve perspective, from a drop-off laundry perspective. You've put in all these repeatable processes with flip-fold boards and training and all these different things. So I know you eventually built Wash-Dry-Fold POS, and my understanding of the story is that you built it because you had a pain point and you couldn't solve that pain point. And what I understand of why you even went down that path is something that I experienced in the fact of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of what led you there was you looked at the options in the industry, and they were essentially incredibly robust dry cleaning systems that were way too convoluted and way too complicated. And I'll just speak for myself here. That's the experience I had. And the people that were using them were taking these very antiquated systems that weren't made for the laundromat industry and trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Mm-hmm. And some people had done that with some level of success, but even when you talk to these people about their experiences, it was way more than they needed. It didn't have the tools that they needed. It was difficult to onboard and train people. My understanding is you experienced a similar thing when you started looking for a modernized POS to bring in and take your businesses to the next level. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't find it either, by the way. and that's what led you to say, well, because you're the innovative person you are, that led you to say, well, there's a problem. There's a problem here.
I can't find it, so I'm going to create it.
Right, because that's what us entrepreneurs do.
That's right.
Is that a fair assessment? And walk me through kind of your mindset with that, and when you came to that moment where you realized, like, there's a problem in our industry, and I need to go solve this.
Yeah. Just a quick note about the third location. We opened that in 2015. So it's been open for almost 6 years now. But yeah, when we opened our second store in 2010, And I think it was the end of 2010 when we opened it, October or so. And then it was by January of 2011 when I actually installed our first point of sale system at the first and second stores. The main goal, the driving force was, okay, I've got a team across 2 locations now. I need to be able to communicate with the team at both places from one central point. I would really like there to be some main thing that the team can access to get messages from management, or, and then at the very least, if I need to make changes to, the pricing and all that, getting away from an old style cash register. Because the first, 6 years of being in business for our company, we used just a cash register and the, carbon copy tickets and all that. And so I knew I needed some type of computer point of sale system. I wanted it to be laundry focused, and there was this whole set of features that I wanted that I couldn't find in other places. Yeah, like you mentioned, either there was dry cleaning software that was very focused on auto racking systems and, the turnaround times in by 9, out by 5 type of stuff, which applies to plant operations, but not really on-site laundry operations. There's one in particular I looked at that had hard-coded in the inventory stuff for fur and leather, and you couldn't get rid of that out of any of the reports. It's like, no, that's not us. And so I scouted around, and it was either it was one or the other. It was either stuff that was extremely dry cleaning focused with like throwing a bone to laundromats, like you could do a wash-dry-fold thing, but you couldn't actually run reports about how many pounds of laundry you've done. And it was just like, I don't get it. And then, or there's the very simplified point of sale system things like Square or Shopkeep and all that, which were really iPad based. And if you're running a small coffee shop or convenience store, those are great, donut shop, excellent options. But there's just enough features about the laundromat drop-off laundry service that we needed, like storing a customer's notes on file and having those print on the receipt, so that when you actually work on the order, you'll see those notes right out there on the receipt. And it's surprising how few systems do that. That feature alone, disqualified the vast majority of all point of sale systems out there. I once wasted $3,000 or $4,000 on a point of sale system as an iPad based one that I had asked the salesperson 2 different questions. I said, can you store notes on file for a customer? Yes. Okay, great. And can you print notes on receipts? Yes, you could. But the key question was, can you print those customer notes on the receipts? No, you can't. And we didn't find out till after we had purchased the system and found out the hardware was not returnable. And it's like, so I've got all this, it wasn't even a regular iPad. It was all one that was all jimmied up to be like a point of sale system. So it was just a waste of money. And that just killed me. It just, we wasted at least $8,000 on systems that didn't work for us. And I tried a couple of dozen point of sale systems, put it all through its paces, and just all that research went into that. Finally found a system that was, kind of more retail focused, but it was configurable enough that it handled all the details that I needed for drop-off laundry service, due date on tickets, paying at drop-off or paying at pickup, on account, commercial billing stuff, and those customer notes printing on the receipt, and a whole bunch of other things. And so installed that and used it over a few years in my family stores, such that over time there was repeated questions that kept coming up at various CLA events and on the forums and all that. And I kept saying, well, there's a system that I've got going on my family stores. It was a bit of work getting it all figured out, but I recommend it. And it wasn't until somebody said, I will pay you to set this up for me, that I realized that there's a business there. So, but kind of getting back to the original idea and where we formed what we did, it was really that idea of needing a central point at each of our stores for team communications. And so having a Windows-based computer that I can install other programs on it rather than it being locked down in some iPad type of thing was important to me. and using things like Dropbox and Google Drive and our website. I made a password protected section of our website for our teams that I called the attendant portal. And I would put stuff like work schedule, time off requests and messages from management and training manual things on that password protected website. And so whenever employees came into work, they could access that point of sale computer and log on to that website. I wouldn't expect them to check it at home, but rather when they come to the store, then we had that central point that they had access to.
So you don't have just a point of sale system, but it's a whole like management software system, like an organizational management system that you developed.
We're getting to that point. Yeah. With Wash-Dry-Fold POS, where that is the roadmap, is really building out an entire laundromat operations type of software, more than just POS. It's more like a laundromat OS type of thing.
Yes.
And so the good news is I'm able to take all these lessons I've learned from stuff that I built for my family stores over the years with kind of this hodgepodge of different systems, some of them free, some of them not. And I'll be able to continue to be building that. And so that's one of those things you're going to continue to see as we grow with Wash-Dry-Fold POS is now that we've got the product at a point where I'm in full control of the development of the software and it's all cloud-based in the current, incarnation of it all. Then we're going to be adding on those modules over time is the plan. That's the roadmap. Hopefully I'm not tipping off competitors too much about what I'm up to, but that's my plan. I plan on building something that's the central nervous system of a laundromat. And really it all flows around that point of sale system because that's kind of the main hub where it ties into. Tied into that, one of the coolest things that happened from the Clean Show 2019 is we had 5 different companies approach us completely unsolicited, but they approached our booth and said, we want to integrate with your system. We hear a lot about Wash-Dry-Fold POS. A lot of our customers have you. We want to tie into what you're doing. 3 of those had been developing or already had their own point of sale system. And they said, we're actually throwing in the towel. We don't want to do that anymore. So we're going to steer our customers to you if maybe you'll consider sending some people our way too. I said, wow. And there's a couple other payment systems for self-service that they said were interested in integrating with us. And so my main takeaway from Clean Show 2019 is like, yeah, I'm on the right path of building that thing that's the glue to tie all these different silos of information together to run a modern laundromat.
Real quickly, what does that look like as far as the benefit of the operator, the you and me that own a laundromat, of having a POS system that is going to is evolving into this management system of your operations of the laundromats? And then what's the benefit to integrating with a payment system or integrating with I can't remember what else you said, a payment system and something else. What are the benefits for the owner, like for the operator?
Absolutely. With self-service and drop-off laundry service, there is a bit of a difference between those customer bases, but there's not a complete separation between the two of them. And so for stores that have like a payment card system, whether you're talking about Laundry Card, Fast Card, Spider Wash, Laundry Works, those type of things where you actually have a card with a balance and you start the machines with it. Being able to also then go over to the point of sale computer and pay for products with that balance that's on your card is kind of honoring the idea that your customer is your customer. And so just adding some more intelligence to your operations about, your customer is still valued, whether they're self-service or they're drop-off. From an operation,
just to clarify, you're saying,
oh, sure,
they could put a credit, let's say $20 on a laundry card, for whatever company in their store, and they could be purchasing, washers and dryers and whatever, but they could take that same card and go over to the vending machine and purchase a Snickers bar and a bottle of Coke, or they could walk up to the counter and purchase those things over the counter because that payment system that's running their washers and dryers is in it. That's what you mean by integration, in a sense that they can walk to the counter and buy a laundry bag or a hangers from the attendant, and they will take their
drop-off service.
Right. Are we understanding that right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And we already have some of those integrations up and running right now, and we're going to be continuing to add to those over time too. So that's one of the parts there. I would say the advantage to a laundromat owner of having a system has all these different parts about managing your laundromat all tied into it, is it saves you the time and effort from having to recreate the wheel on this stuff. And then likewise, as you grow your team and you pass off tasks to your management team and all that, rather than having to give a manager 5, 6, 7, 8, different usernames and passwords for all the various different hodgepodge of systems that you've, kludged together to make it all work, to manage everything, they could just have one login and one source to go to for everything. It is a source of confusion also for laundry attendants when you ask them to remember how to log into the company website, as well as like the Spider Wash dashboard. That's how it was for our stores. And then the point of sale system. Oh, and also don't forget, here's your thing for your payroll stuff too. And it's just too much. And so, and if you don't happen to have a Brian Henderson on your team to figure out all these systems for your dad,
not too many of us
kind of
do.
thing, not everybody does. Then by building this all through software, I can share what I've learned by piecing stuff together manually for my family stores. I can share it in one nice tidy package to other laundromats, and that's kind of where it came about. And I guess that would be the advantage. It's been a dream of mine for over a decade now to have a unified system that tied all these silos of information together. I remember I think we were in the first laundromat in Oklahoma to have the Spider Wash system in all of our washers and dryers back in 2010. I think Spider Wash launched in 2009, something like that. And it just killed me that we had the self-service payment system on the washers and dryers, and that couldn't tie into the register. And then likewise, it just, none of it talked to each other. And
So I assume you experienced that pain point, which is, again, what us entrepreneurs do, is I'm assuming you had customers with this Spider Wash loyalty card that would put money on it, and they would buy washers and buy dryers, and they would have $13 left. And they would come up to the counter and be like, can I buy a whatever over the counter?
Yeah.
And you had to say no.
Yeah, I mean, you go to any other type of business, then
Right.
that would
That's
just
crazy.
it would all be unified. Whereas for laundromats, it's this disconnect there. So that's a big part of it. So it's really me building this is kind of the culmination of a dream I've had for over a decade now, and it's exciting and thrilling to finally be in a spot to be able to pursue that in a way that I see fit, and also getting this constant feedback from our customers about what works and what doesn't. And so we're constantly fine tuning it. And it's this really cool thing. My journey is a unique one in the laundromat industry, in that I find myself in a really privileged spot to be constantly talking to laundromats from every corner of the country, learning from them about their best practices, and me getting to share what I've learned from other laundromat owners. And I feel that I'm a better laundromat operator because of that, and then also have better advice to give to others who are either just starting out on adding Wash-Dry-Fold, or just wanting to improve their game and all that. And it's this just by happenstance and circumstance that I've gotten to this point where I'm learning from everybody and getting to dish it out too. And kind of like you, Dave. I mean, it's like I learn from the best and I give to the best that I can.
Absolutely.
And it's a really cool spot to be in.
Absolutely.
I will say.
Can you tell me a little bit about, so you started your own company, Wash-Dry-Fold POS. How long ago was that? So how long has this been going, and what has the growth been like? So I know it started with just you. You have a partner now. Like, how many stores are you servicing? How many employees do you have? Can you tell me a little bit about the growth in your company now?
Yeah, it was in 2016 when there was a laundromat that was built about 30 minutes outside of our hometown. And the guy who's building it said that I went to the Clean Show 2015. I literally bought every bit of equipment I needed for my store at that show. But the one thing I couldn't find was a point of sale system. It didn't have what I needed as a laundromat. And I see you with this here in your store, and you've talked about it. If I pay you, will you sell me a system? I mean, it said it just like that. It's like, okay, well, let me put some numbers together and see what makes sense. And I came back to him with a price, and he said, good. Okay. And that's literally how I started. And so then I put out word on the Coin Laundry Association forum saying, hey, I'm starting selling some POS systems. I built a website for it. Come take a look. And I had already sold 3 systems and collected money from them before I had even gotten the final word on the authority to start reselling the software that I was selling at that point in time. So I collected the money, and then I went and got the systems to piece together and ship out and all that. And it just kind of rolled from there. We're in several hundred laundromats now across 43 different states, including Alaska, Hawaii, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And the Wash-Dry-Fold POS, the company itself, it's still just me and my business partner, Ian Gallahan, at this moment. Now that we have cloud-based software that we've built completely from scratch, that launched at the end of last year. We've already boarded close to 100 laundromats on that new software in just a few short months. We're now building out our team, because now it's time to start building out some redundancy on our staffing and all that too, because there's literally thousands of people depending on our products to work properly and all that too. So that's kind of the path we're on right now. It started as kind of an interesting offshoot of what I was already doing to becoming my main thing. And then in 2018, really becoming my main thing is when I stepped away from any of the operations of Liberty Laundry to focus completely on the point of sale business. And now that we launched the cloud-based software, things are accelerating even more. And so I have an obligation to myself and my, co-owner, Ian, and all of our customers to now really build out, the company that this is needing to be, where it's growing whether I want it to or not. And obviously I want it to, and things are accelerating. So now it's time to add to the staff and grow from there.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And knowing you as a human being and how innovative you are and how hands-on you are, it doesn't surprise me at all that this is the journey that you took. But I will say I've always been really big even before I was in business for myself. I've always really been big on reading and research and networking and learning from others and things like that. And one of the things I've read over and over and over again in my journey is say yes and then figure out how to execute. And it sounds like you kind of did that. You had somebody come to you with a problem. Well, you had a problem. You solved that. Then others recognized that. They came to you and they were like, hey, you solved this problem for yourself. Will you solve it for me? And of course, you could have said no if that wasn't on your heart and that wasn't in your ambitions and what you wanted to spend your life's work doing. But having the heart of someone like you who wants to solve problems and meet needs, and you're passionate about this industry, and you see this industry and its flaws and its strengths, and you want to attack those flaws and make them better, you just jumped in and said, yeah, let me figure out what I can do. And I find it interesting that you sold 3 systems before you had any idea how you were. I mean, you had some idea because you'd done it for yourself. But the funny thing is, like, people that aren't in business for themselves, whether they're in our industry or not, a lot of times this sounds crazy to them, right? It sounds insane that you would do something like that, because it kind of goes against the laws of nature and what we're taught in school of having our ducks in a row and prepared for a test. And that's just not entrepreneurship in so many cases. Yeah. It's actually the opposite of that. It is messy. It is kind of dirty. And it is a matter of just being willing to just be like, you know what? I have confidence in myself that I have figured out part of this. I'm going to figure out the rest of it. And so I'm going to jump in and start swimming, and I'm not going to stop swimming. Right. I'm just going to keep going. And if you do that every day, yes, you'll run into some brick walls and some obstacles. Mm-hmm. You'll learn from them. You'll back up, you'll reboot and move forward and be wiser and smarter for it. What I'm hearing you say is that is essentially the epitome of how you've built this business.
Yeah, I've this company, that Wash-Dry-Fold POS, the only money of my own I've invested into it was the $100 to start the business checking account. Everything else has been based off of sales. And I'm a firm believer of, you don't have a business until you earn $1, right? Right. So earn it and optimize and go from there. Obviously, you do need to actually be able to fulfill on what you've sold. That's, don't get me wrong. There are some weird stuff in the tech startup thing of putting up fake, landing pages of, taking sales before they have literally even a product to sell, which that's not what we do. But it's more of, you're never going to have all of your ducks in a row. You're never going to have it all figured out. And if you haven't taken the plunge on getting into the laundromat business or starting your own company, and you're just watching this podcast with the thought of, maybe this is an industry you want to go into business for yourself. Yes, you do need to get things figured out. You need to have a plan. You need to act on it. But by taking that first step, actually moving forward is going to help you see what the next step is. And you're not going to know what the final step is going to be. I still don't know where this is going to lead. I have an idea and there's a direction I want it to go, but by going through it, that fuels the next step and all of that. And so just be confident and move forward. And there is, the typical entrepreneurial thing. There's no such thing as failure. It's just you found a way that didn't work successfully. And so now you're going to move on to something that, you optimize from there.
It wasn't a failure. It was a learning opportunity.
Yeah. You successfully found a way that didn't work. And so now, don't go down that path, go a different way. And then from there you can improve. I mean, Dave, you start out with unintended stores, but you found that actually you really kind of prefer having an intended experience. And then that led to delivery and where you are now. And that's then accelerated. And given you've got a product now that you're extremely proud of, and rightly so, because you've earned it, but you didn't start there. You started at the beginning when that you did the step ladder approach where you just worked your way on up every single time. And yeah, I mean, that's just the way it goes.
Well, and one thing I really wanted to point out to people too, real quick, if I could, is that those failures that we talk about that you reboot, you learn from those. You learn from those and you're better for them. Yes, you have figured out a way not to do things, but so often in our minds, we compartmentalize things as success or failure. And the reality is that it's almost always some mixture. Now, it may be 70-30 or 80-20 or 20-10. I don't know what it is, but in all those cases, what I always say is take the lesson, then take the things that are going to make you better, pull those into you, embrace those things, and then take them and run with them. And all that garbage that, okay, I figured out a way not to do things. Okay, that's great. We're not going to do that anymore. But I'm looking for the nuggets is what I call them. I'm looking for the jewels that can help me figure out, because it's usually not a fail or success proposition. It's usually kind of percentages of each that lead us to success. And then I think the last thing with that, for me at least, is that knowing that success is a journey. It's not a destination. And I know that's totally cliche as well. Oh, yeah. But the reality is it's true. Like, we're never not on the journey to success when we're wired the way that us entrepreneurs and business owners are wired. We're always looking for better ways to do things and ways to fine tune things. And sometimes those lead to new opportunities, which can be life-changing for us as business owners and life-changing for other people. And so I think one of the really big things that I kind of hate about business ownership and entrepreneurship is like this Hollywood version of things where you have to sit down and you have to have this plan and you have to have it all put together. And then you just go execute and you just go straight to the moon. And that's just not how business ownership and entrepreneurship is in almost all cases. So really part of the message I like to get out there, and what I'm hearing repeated from you, Brian, is that it is a messy journey, and you just you can't go in unprepared, but you'll never be prepared. And so you have to accept that. You have to accept that fear, that uneasy feel in our stomach, but have confidence in ourselves and in our family and in our team that we're going to figure this out together. It's never going to be figured out, but we're always going to be improving the processes. And I can see that in the way your dad runs his businesses. I can see that in the way that you've joined the team and continued to improve those. And why you got into Wash-Dry-Fold POS was you were continuing to achieve or chase success in trying to make your family's chain of laundromats better. And that led to a whole new business venture. And you figured that out, we'll call it real quick, on a small scale. And then you saw a problem even bigger than that in the industry. And now you're chasing that, and knowing you'll probably never stop because you're always going to be pursuing that next level. And I think that's where the kind of cliches come in for business owners and entrepreneurs, which is live your life. Live your life. Like there is no end goal. There is no deadline. As long as you're around and you're alive and you're ambitious, you can chase your dreams, and it's okay to pivot.
On a related note, there's the idea of throw things at the wall and see what sticks.
Absolutely.
That's part of it. But also there's the mentality, and this is a lesson I've learned from my dad, and he follows this, and I believe it firmly too. Dance with the one that brought you.
Sure.
Focusing on your core competencies. There's a lot of questions people ask about self-service laundromats. What other ancillary services can we add? And, are we talking tanning beds or massage chairs or wash-dry-fold services? And then stuff that's just off the walls, it's like, no. And so for Liberty Laundry, for our chain of stores, we've always really focused on being very excellent at our core competencies. We have drop-off laundry service. We have excellent, fully staffed, self-service stores, nice, clean appearance, utilitarian almost, not too cushy. Our furniture, is like outdoor grade, powder coated furniture and all that, but it still looks brand new even after a decade of use in a store. And just that really polishing something till it shines and making sure that it's a well-oiled machine that is very good at delivering on what you've promised to your customers. Likewise with Wash-Dry-Fold POS, I'm continuing to add things. I will continue to add things, but it's always going to be in that core competency of, I have built this for laundromats. I built this off of experience with running my family's laundromats. I've built this based off of the requests and lessons I've learned from hundreds of, probably a couple thousand other laundromat owners by this point in time of just talking to them of the things that they need help with running their laundromats. And we're always going to continue to focus on that. And so, yes, try things and see what works. Absolutely persevere, but also focus on what's working and continue to maximize that to the 10th degree. Dance with the one that brought you is another part of all that. So 1,000 iterations, and then also focus on the basics, To
a laundromat owner that currently only has self-service, they're looking at starting a drop-off. What advice would you give them? Like, should they go ahead and jump in getting a POS system? Should they start off, where should they start? What should they do?
It's an excellent question. Regardless of the method you use for tracking the orders, you really do need to have down pat the process of going from order come in and finished order going out. And there's a whole host of work that doesn't involve any sort of computer-based system and all that. And so the answer to that question really depends on what type of a laundromat owner are you? Are you there regularly, or are you completely hands-off? If you're there regularly yourself, then personally, I feel that's the best and quickest way to get to a point where you can then delegate it successfully. If you're a very hands-off absentee type of owner, although there's no such thing as a truly absentee owner, which I'm sure you've talked about before, not for successful laundromats,
Right.
Or anyway, you know what I mean. So then that's going to cost you more to hire somebody who's going to do that work for you, to figure it all out for you, kind of a thing. So, but yeah, focus on a written training manual for your team on how to get, process the orders and get the laundry clean and, properly, and then communicating
So
with
developing
the
that
customers.
consistency.
Yeah. If you're doing less than 3,000 a month in Wash-Dry-Fold, there's nothing wrong with doing carbon copy tickets and cash register, or a basic point of sale, tablet type thing like Square or something like that. It's an excellent option. If we found, if you're, and this is just an arbitrary line, but about if you're doing more than 3,000 a month, or intend to, like say you've got a brand new laundromat that you're just convinced is going to do really well, then there's nothing wrong with starting out with the point of sale system, even though you haven't actually gotten the sales to that point yet. But if you're doing more than 3,000 a month, then you really need to start looking into computerizing it with some type of computer-based point of sale system. The good news is, whether you're starting small or if you're going at it in a big way, you've got a whole range of options to choose from. And there's never a better time for a small business to add a computer-based point of sale system to their operations there. So
listen, what I really want to do is kind of actually run back for a second, because there's something I think valuable in here that we kind of glazed over real quickly. I just want to take you and your dad's perspective on this. So when your dad started his laundromats, and I know you joined the business later, you had never been unattended. And
Right.
your dad, obviously, that was part of his business model from the beginning, which being unattended makes it really difficult. Not that it can't be done with lockers and stuff, but it makes it difficult to have a wash-dry-fold system or process that you can, scale and grow. So why, and this might be a better question for your dad, but I suspect you know the answer. Why does your family feel like having attendance in the store is even worth the effort? Because it takes, obviously there's the financial aspect to being attended, payroll versus no payroll, or limited payroll, or contractors. But then there's also like the hassle factor of doing schedules, managing, interviewing, training, disciplining, all those things. What was the thought process with your family? Because, your dad had started one way, but he also could have pivoted and said, like, well, this actually makes more sense from from a business perspective to actually be unattended. So you all could have changed your mind and pivoted. Why does your family feel like having attendants in the store is so valuable and worth the effort?
That's an excellent question. And really, it comes down to the idea of the fact that we are primarily a customer service organization. We happen to make money by cleaning customers' clothes, whether that's self-service or drop-off.
Right.
But more than anything else, Liberty Laundry, the company, is really an organization about helping our customers with their need of getting that laundry clean and doing it in a friendly and comfortable way, in such a way that they feel safe bringing their families to our laundromats. And so that mentality of we are a customer service organization and we happen to make money doing laundry it kind of has influenced our whole approach to it. And really, I feel one of the key ingredients about why our laundromats have done so well and have had the staying power that they have and continue to grow. The last 2 months have been the biggest months ever in the company's history, just continued growth. I mean, what type of organization do you want to be is a big part of it. I have met laundromat owners who went from attended to unattended because they didn't feel that having a friendly face in the laundromat was essential to who they were as a company. Whereas for our operations, we really do feel that personal connection, learning customers' names, greeting them by name when they return to the store, and the customers knowing the names of the people who work there is one of the key ingredients to who we are as a company. And the same thing goes on to Wash-Dry-Fold POS too, about that personal connection. If you look on our reviews page in Wash-Dry-Fold POS, you'll see constant mentions about us by name. Obviously, it's a small team to begin with, but it's because we focus on that personal connection with each of our customers that's so important to us, that matches, with who we are as a company. And so that's why it's worth the hassle. Plus, on the financial side of it, when your drop-off laundry service more than covers payroll, then it feels like everything beyond that is gravy. So that's emotionally, that's a good feeling too, of knowing that your staffing is more than covered by the work that they are doing. So they're paying for their own keep. In fact, back when I was still training attendants, I would typically say every time you do a drop-off order, you're paying for your own payroll by doing this work. So it's a team effort and we all work together on it, right? Kind of a thing. So
one thing I'll add to it real quickly is that a lot of people don't realize that being attended, we both know plenty of people that run unattended stores and do it very well. Mm-hmm. There's neither of us are going to disagree on that. But the reality is the one thing that an unattended store can't ever be is an attended store. Mm-hmm. There are workarounds, there's technology, there are different things. But there is a value proposition associated with having someone in the store, not necessarily a body, but having an attendant in the store that is well-trained, that is supervised, that is invested in, that you have a positive culture in your organization. Mm-hmm. And one of the things a lot of people take for granted, you talked about the revenue stream from Wash-Dry-Fold, the drop-off laundry side of things, paying for the attendant. One of the experiences I've had, and I know hundreds of laundromat owners in the industry, that when they've evolved from unattended to attended, and this doesn't happen overnight, is that what happens is, yes, you have this Wash-Dry-Fold revenue, which is fantastic, but their self-serve revenue increases usually over an 18 to 24 month period of time. We're talking numbers in 20 to 50% range. And so you can pay for your labor, quote unquote, with your drop-off laundry service, which many people do very well. But then you're getting there's this whole other segment of society that will now use your store because the value proposition has went up. And that's just gross numbers. That doesn't even account for being able to raise the vend price in your market and be a price leader because you offer a value proposition higher than the people up the board.
It's a virtuous cycle. Yeah.
Yes.
And even the CLA industry surveys will confirm that attended stores offer drop-off laundry services tend to gross 3 to 5 times in the national average of laundromat, of typical laundromat. And so you do multiple times what others do. It's the question of, do you sell a commodity or do you have a business with personal relationships with each of your customers? The sooner that you learn a customer's name and they learn yours and you greet them in a heartfelt fashion upon the return, the sooner you have moved that customer to a loyal customer, one who will repeatedly come when asked by a friend or family member of a place they recommend, "Oh, I like such and such a place. The people who work there are so nice. I know the owners, that kind of a thing. You've shifted your store in their mind from a commodity, a room full of vending machines, to something that is a personal connection.
Right.
I once had a customer. He was in the store, he's kind of looking around, and he said, this place is different. It feels like church.
Wow.
So tell me more about that. It's like, it's peaceful, it's friendly, the people who are there, and it's just, you feel like you belong. And it's, I almost had tears in my eyes when he was talking about it, just describing it. And that's always stuck with me. Just that his reaction to it was, it feels like church, which to me means that he was saying that it feels like home. It feels like his
comforting.
Extended community, comforting family. And
there's no place like home.
There's no place like home.
When people come to your laundromat not to do something that they really enjoy. You get some people who are, oh boy, excited laundry, but typically they come to your facility to do a laundry that they hate and pay you money for that privilege, right? And so any way that you can remove those barriers to entry, your company will grow, whether you're talking about payment systems or technology or your equipment mix, but also the emotional almost said burden and hurdle at the same time, emotional hurdles, barriers. If they can feel like they belong, they know that they're wanted, they're greeted in a friendly fashion when they arrive, then they're going to be more likely to come and do this chore, as opposed to using every single excuse not to come, whether that's, I don't have a roll of quarters. Well, no problem. We have, card acceptors on our machines, or, I don't know how to use the equipment. Well, no problem. We have somebody here to help you. Or everything's so hostile every time I go there. Not a problem. We're going to take care of you. We're always attended. We always have somebody here to help you no matter what. And that increases that loyalty and keeps them coming back. And so you can see it. I'm kind of talking around the subject, but that's why we're always attended, is that part of it, because it fits that pattern, our zealous pursuit of removing those barriers to entry. Remove the fear of the unknown in all of your marketing. Try to get pictures of your store out there and make them feel like they know what they're going to get when they arrive. And then when they get there, then follow up on that with that excellent service and that connection and that personal relationship that will make them want to come back again in the future.
Wow. That's pretty powerful stuff. Thank you for sharing that.
That's my soapbox. That's right.
That's amazing. And I hope people take that.
Yeah.
Yes.
We agree. Going back to Brian Henderson and the Wash-Dry-Fold POS, I'm sure our viewers would love to know, what do you see next for Wash-Dry-Fold POS and for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, we're in a phase right now with our cloud-based version of our software that we still say we're in early access at this moment. We're in early access, and we're already quickly approaching 100 laundromats on the new system. So not bad.
By the way, to point out, that's on the new system. I'm not sure.
On the new system. Yeah, it's not total. That. This is
right.
the brand
roughly
thing.
How many laundromats have a Wash-Dry-Fold POS? I mean, just 300, 500, 1,000?
Oh, it's about 450 at this moment.
450. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
That's all right.
The system has 100. Mm-hmm. The entire system has like 450.
Yeah, that's about where we are right now. And the pace is increasing right now. The last couple of months, we've been growing at a faster pace than we have before. And so thank goodness I have a cloud-based system that I can then continue to optimize it so we can scale with that. I finally have a solution that is very scalable. And so that's why we're so pumped about this, because before we had desktop-based software that was very much tied to each individual system and all that. And now we have something that can expand our reach. We're going to continue focusing on just the United States for the time being, but now that we have cloud-based software, eventually that may lead to international type stuff on down the road if we decide to get to that point. So what's next is continuing to add features to our software based off of feedback from our users. We have some more laundromat management type of features that are going to be added, like equipment maintenance features. So for example, right now, we have the ability of tracking which machines were used for drop-off laundry orders. We have this whole order tracker page, we call it, and you can choose which washers and dryers are used and how much was used to start those machines. And that kind of stuff. But that same equipment list is going to tie into a feature we'll be uploading of equipment maintenance. So when you did repairs on washers and dryers and warranty on parts and notifying you, the owner or a technician, of when a machine's flagged out of order by an attendant at the store, just tying into that. And so we're using that same framework that we've already laid and then adding on these laundromat operation features that will just make it more and more convenient. So if you need to get a part for a piece of equipment, just looking up the model number or serial number in the app, and then having that all at your fingertips, and more team management type of features to the software, whether that's work scheduling. And I do want to mention, I want to take the time to brag on my business partner, Ian Gallahan. He's our sales director. Excellent man, my best friend, and also just stellar, super sharp at business. But the advantage of our sales director also being a co-owner is that he approaches every deal, like you mentioned, as though we're partnering together with every customer that we have. Our return rate, our churn rate, they call it for subscriptions and all that, but even returns of systems is extremely low. And it's not because we're picky on who we let in, but rather it's because Ian takes the time to really explore with each, deal, each lead that comes our way about, are we a good fit for what your operations are and what you're trying to do? And if there's a solution that's a better fit for you, we'll actually give you recommendations on other systems, even competitors that will better fit what you're trying to do. We'll actively steer you towards them because we think that you'll be a better, more satisfied person in that direction. And that's a real strength of ours at this point in time. The fact that he approaches every deal as an owner, and rather than a salesperson who's trying to make a deal, whether it's good or not for the customer.
Right.
So
not after the commission. He's doing what's best for your company and what's best for the customer. Yeah.
And not to brag too much, but I will say that of the just handful of returns that we've had in our, 6 years of being in business now, 5 years, how long has it been? 2016, 2020, like 5 years. Yeah. So in the 5 years, the handful of returns that we've had were never because a customer was just straight up dissatisfied with the product. We've never had somebody who bought it and just felt they just didn't do what they wanted and they give it back. It's every single time it's been some other reason, like they went through a major divorce and then another was like a disagreement between the business owners of the laundromats. And they're like, well, they wanted to go a different direction. Those sorts of things. It never been
business issues, not the product issues.
It's a point of real pride on my part that I've never had somebody who's just so dissatisfied with the product that they returned it. And so that's
that's awesome.
That's a pretty cool sign, and that's a good indication that we're on the right path of the way we approach every person who approaches us for a quote, and then also on the product moving forward. So that's a big deal.
Well, that's
a big deal to us.
I mean, that's a sign of you and your family's success, your integrity, your character, that those things matter to you. You focus on those things. And I'm also a big believer in focusing on the people and understanding that, we need to make money, and understanding that if we focus on the people and the products and the processes and repeatability and, maintaining our character and our integrity and things like that, the money will follow. When you do those things, it'll just snowball. And all of a sudden you'll realize that you've launched 100 new Wash-Dry-Fold POS systems in a matter of a few months. That stuff doesn't happen by mistake. Yeah. And those are also very predictable patterns in business. And we can see many people in business that are set up for success because we look at their history and we look at their character. And that's why I'm proud to know you, call you a friend. But I'm also proud to partner with you and Ian. And I appreciate what you do. So I have a couple last questions for you, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of tell people how they can reach you. Some people in the industry know probably a few places. I have the Laundromat Millionaire, private group that we have on Facebook. And if you guys aren't aware of that, or if you're interested in laundromats or small business or entrepreneurship, if you're on Facebook, just send me a message or send me a request, and we'll get you into that group and get you plugged in. And Brian is definitely on there some and plugging in and giving people advice on business that has nothing to do with Wash-Dry-Fold POS. Because as you can see from this interview, his experience goes way beyond his expertise goes way beyond just one particular product or service. So one of my questions is, I know you're really big on networking. I know you have a great mentor, probably multiple ones, but in your dad, as far as a business person. But what's the best advice that you've ever been given And I would point this out in a business perspective. So what's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given by somebody?
Well, that's a big question. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in constantly researching, learning. There's a period of time when we were growing Liberty Laundry, and Dad and I almost had like a book of the month club with each other. We'd be reading business books and passing them back and forth. And so just that constant learning. And there's so many lessons. You see me stalling for time. I'm
Sorry to
thinking
put you
about
in
the best
the
one is.
spot.
No, that's quite all right. Yeah, since we're on the subject of my dad, I keep thinking about a phrase he's used before. He said, "A farmer plows his fields, a farmer tends his fields." And it was talking about don't get too distracted by shiny object syndrome, and being a creative person, being an innovative person, and also being a super tech geek, it's very easy for me to get, drawn to something shiny and new. And especially if you're successful in business, then it's common to think that all the success you've had will instantly translate to any business endeavor that you pursue, and that's not always true. And so focusing on what brought you to where you are, and then those duties and responsibilities that you have, continuing to focus on those as the primary thing is really important. It's not about being the smartest. It's not about being the fastest. It's not necessarily about being the best. It's about being the most persistent with integrity. And we've seen it with Liberty Laundry. We've seen it with Wash-Dry-Fold POS. I'm very proud of what we've built. I'm very proud of myself and what we do, but also I'm very proud of the fact that we've just kept at it, just keep going and just tend your fields, it's
Absolutely.
It's a big part of what we do. So, I would say that's it. And there are times when you hear stories of people who are like a successful business owner, and then they decide to open up another type of business, and that just puts everything at risk because they didn't account for the fact that, it's not all translatable. There are certain things that do translate, but
yes.
I'm curious. So you've definitely gotten the laundromat bug. I know in the beginning you were talking about how you all laughed at your dad about every time you're at the dinner table, he's talking
every
laundromats.
Time.
Have you?
And I guess it's still that way. Oh yeah.
Are you having the middle-aged thing that we get? We're like, oh my gosh, I sound like my mom. Do you
every
do
day.
that?
Every day. Oh yes, every day. And it was this. I've gone through two transformations, I feel, as it relates to the laundry industry. There was that thing of when I was in college and I was pursuing chemistry. It's like I want nothing to do with the laundromats. That's not my thing. And then I realized that okay, this is pretty cool. And then I got into the position where I was empowered to, build and develop these systems for laundromats and saw the results of it and, study these business books and implement those things, the next day in the business. And it grew and just got the entrepreneurial bug and all that. Went through that transformation there. And then when I started Wash-Dry-Fold POS, using that same skill set and flip-flopping from working in a business that was entirely local with a lot of staff and business to consumer and, very physical and direct to one serving a national customer base, all business to business, all on the phone and on the computer through website, e-sales. And yet it's the same industry and it's the still same knowledge set. There's another flip-flop there of getting to see kind of the other side of it and then being able to serve other laundromat owners. It's just been this interesting transformation. I guess I have a home field advantage that the target customer of Wash-Dry-Fold POS is pretty much the same profile as my dad. And so it's not to play it up too much, but I know how to talk this talk and we agree on so many things. And so when we talk business and about operations, about the way to run the laundromats and all that, I consider so many of my customers good, close friends because we just agree on life and business and all that. And so that's what keeps me pumped. And that's why I stay involved in the community it's like, these are my people,
It's our tribe. That's what they call them. Our tribe.
It just fits. It just fits.
Yeah.
So.
Well, listen, man, thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to do this with us because I want you to know that me and Carla, we value your time. We appreciate the fact that it's very valuable to you. We're recording this on a weekend. which entrepreneurs work weekends, by the way,
Yeah.
in case nobody knows.
Yeah.
Another part, secret to the success, right? It's a top secret thing.
That's right.
But the reality is, I know that, every hour is valuable, and that especially on the weekend, there's probably a high likelihood if you weren't doing this with us, bringing value to the small business community and world, that you probably wouldn't have been spending time with your family or investing in your business. And those are two things that you're passionate about, are very important to you. And so my point is that we are eternally grateful for the fact that you took the time to do this. And you have our word that we will definitely try to make this into a product that will bring value to people for years and years to come. So we appreciate you helping us with our passion, our journey, or maybe I should say mine, a little bit. Carla's. She always says she's along for the ride. That's why I keep telling her, I'm like, I'm going to make a T-shirt like just along for the ride.
That would be my
Carla Menz. But anyway, so listen, how can people reach you? And I want to point out one thing real quick before I give you this opportunity. People understand about Brian Henderson and even Ian. Understand about them that they're great people. They're incredibly knowledgeable about the laundromat industry, not just Wash-Dry-Fold POS. They are not salespeople. They are not going to try to sell you or pitch you on something, but what they will try to do is help you. And if they believe that their product, or you mentioned it, Brian, some other product is best suited, that's not lip service. I'm telling you, I know this man, and that's not lip service. And I know Ian really well too. I've gotten to know him. He's an awesome man. And they want to help you. Like, they don't want to sell you something. That's not why Brian's here today, is to sell Wash-Dry-Fold POS. He's doing a pretty good job of that on his own. And that's not why he's here today. He's here because he has what we call the heart of a servant. And Ian does too. People that genuinely want to help you. So when you're at the Clean Show or Excellence in Laundry, whether they have a booth or not is irrelevant. These are people that are in the industry, quote unquote laundry nerds, according to Brian. And I embrace that, by the way, as well. And they're good people and they want to help you. So my point is, not just reach out to Brian or Ian or get to know them at the Clean Show if you're interested in Wash-Dry-Fold POS. And don't assume that they only want to speak to you if you're interested in purchasing Wash-Dry-Fold POS, because that's not who these people are. They're a big part of what makes our industry fantastic. And they're big on networking and meeting people and helping us solve problems for the industry, for our local community. They see the value in that. So I don't want to push too many people your direction at one time. But the reality is, I want to give you an opportunity to tell people how can they reach you. But what I'm really trying to put out to the audience is, don't not reach out or get to know Brian and Ian just because you think maybe Wash-Dry-Fold POS isn't for you, or you don't even do drop off, so you wouldn't have a use for Wash-Dry-Fold POS, or you don't even have attendance or something like that. That's not what this is about. I want the industry to know you more and more. And maybe we should do an episode with Ian, by the way. And so how can they reach you from a Wash-Dry-Fold POS perspective, but even just a personal level?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And if you can push 10 to 20 people my way a month, I would appreciate that, Dave. Thank you. So it's great. Yeah, we'll keep it modest. So, okay. So the absolute best way, if you're interested in learning more about Wash-Dry-Fold POS, is to go to our website. It's just washdryfoldpos.com. And we have demos on our website and even a video where I kind of walk you through the software. There's a contact form on our website where you just reach out to us, and then we'll follow up with you on seeing if this is a good fit for what you're doing or where you're headed, or if there's a solution that's a better fit for you, then yeah, please let us know. If you're on Facebook, then facebook.com/washdryfoldpos is another way to reach us. Again, we'll steer you back to our site, though. That contact form is the best way to reach us. So yeah, that's primarily it, is our website there. So
fantastic. Awesome.
It was so nice to meet you, Brian, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Any last words for the audience, or did you get everything in?
That was mostly it. I guess really the key takeaway is just 1,000 iterations to success. Ian and I are constantly kind of laughing because it's like one more adjustment, one more little fine tuning to what we do, whether it's our website or our processes or our product. And it's just that constant process of build, learn, and then, study, and then build again, and just keep on moving on. Sure. And it's just going to be a constant process. And so just approach business that way. Understand it's never going to be a clear slam dunk. It's always going to be a gradual process that snowballs over time. And so 1,000 iterations to success. That's it.
Yeah. Man, that's it. That's fantastic. That's a great way to end it. Everyone, thanks for joining us on this episode of Laundromat Millionaire Business Podcast with our awesome guest, Brian Henderson. Look for our next episode coming out in a week or so, roughly 10 days. And we're going to have another great guest for you. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.